is great. So I welcome all of you. We have some people who have been here usually on this evening teaching, but we have some new people too, so welcome. So as Mike said, we usually have questions from the reading of the past month or week. And I don't know if there's any questions, but the thinking was we should talk about love. It is Valentine's Day. And given that, what's our view? What's the Buddhist teaching on love? And it may not be what you think it is. So are there any questions, first of all, from the readings or anything else that has come up before I take the floor and start talking about the Buddha's teachings on love? And of course, we'll have time for questions and answers about our teaching for tonight. But I want to make sure that we have the opportunity to answer any questions that may have come up for you during this time, since our last time together.
And feel free to either unmute yourself to ask a question or put them in the chat.
All right, and we can revisit this as well, but I will go ahead and speak a little bit about love from a Buddhist point of view. And just as blood nourishes the heart, which keeps it flowing, so really in Buddhism, it is love that nourishes our spiritual life and gives us spiritual freedom and is in turn kept flowing by it. It is really the Bodhisattva love that we're talking about here. The connection is so strong that Buddhism often is known as a path of freedom, could equally be called a religion of love. And perhaps that is what he had in mind when Dalai Lama recently said that his religion is a religion of kindness. I think he could have equally said a religion of love. For the Buddha, love is one of the paths to full spiritual realization and liberation. It is an important aspect as we traverse the path to total freedom and Buddhahood. So if we call Buddhism a religion of love, we need to be clear what we mean by love. Or more precisely, what forms of love we are including. Because freedom is the guide, the measure, the ultimate goal of all things Buddhist. Because we are so tied by habitual patterns, we've lost our freedom and we really aren't free. We talk about kleshas and we talk about, the things that bind us, our habitual patterns. So the ultimate goal in Buddhist love includes those forms of love that are characterized, involves pure love, uncontrived love, a love that involves clinging and lust and confusion and neediness and fear and grasping to a self would in Buddhist terms be seen as expressions of bondage and limitation, and they're very confining. But that is basically how most people experience love. It is a very egoistic expression of out of neediness or grasping. So loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and a particular form of equanimity where we have this love are the four kinds of love taught and encouraged in classic Buddhist teachings. None of these are uniquely Buddhist. There are four qualities that reside within everyone, and at least as potentials, but they are thought of as important qualities And teachings about the 4 forms of love that I just mentioned existed in India prior to the Buddha, even. They were elements common to the Indian spiritual world, which the Buddha included within his system of practice. So while Buddhism cannot exist without love, it may be helpful to realize that love can exist happily apart from Buddhism. I mean, we can have authentic, real expressions of love. Learning the ways of these 4 loves that I mentioned does not require one to become a Buddhist. These are the natural expressions of the innate wisdom and but what is called in Buddhism our Buddha nature. And it only requires a willingness to develop these innate qualities that exist in us. So love does not need to be left to chance. It can be cultivated. It mustn't be a matter of falling in love, nor must we accept in whatever degree or frequency it happens to appear. But the Buddhist tradition has developed a range of practices and reflections designed to develop our capacity to love. As with a treasure behind a locked door, we can find the key through these teachings that allows us to open the door of love. Like a muscle, love can be strengthened through practice and developed. So in their most developed forms, the 4 types of love can each become a boundless radiance, glowing from us. And as such, love may flow from us equally toward all beings, or it can glow freely without needing to be directed to anyone. It's just a natural expression of our innate nature. And these are sometimes called the 4 boundless qualities. This quality, love without any particular object, is recognized in Buddhism as a form of liberation. It's just a natural expression of who we are, and manifests without any need for reciprocity or reciprocation in any way. It is just done as a natural expression of one's innate wisdom, actually. So to be free only when things are pleasant is not real liberation. And similarly, to love only in optimal conditions is not real love. Not real love. Not a few Buddhist meditations or meditators have experienced great love while in meditation, only to have it disappear. We may experience for a period of time, but outside of meditation, we can lose that feeling. So we develop it in our day-to-day life. It can be easily to love all beings in abstract, but when the rubber meets the road and we are experience all the things that the challenges that we experience in our daily lives, it can be a challenge to maintain that loving heart. So one of the most rewarding spiritual practices is to cultivate the ability to bring love into all aspects of our life and to all people we encounter. I know that sounds vast, but this entails learning how to include love's presence while we're speaking to others, while we're engaged in some activity with others. Even when we're in conflict with others, we don't have to lose that sense of loving kindness and compassion. while this can be a daunting task, and you may say that it sounds idealistic and maybe impossible to do, the masters have done that, and they demonstrate how to do that. That is the way of the Bodhisattva. So even practicing loving kindness for the time it takes to snap the fingers is beneficial. Drop by drop, we fill the bucket. So each drop of practice is significant. And as the Buddha said, with dripping drops of water, the water jug is filled. So we have the opportunity every day to practice loving kindness and compassion. Any particular question or comment about anything thus far?
I have. You mentioned the 4 qualities, and I think the last one was equanimity. Can you repeat the first 3?
Yeah, the way I said it was, and you make the 4 boundless characteristics of loving kindness and compassion and equanimity and let's see, let me just say it the way I did before: loving kindness, compassion. Appreciative joy. So sympathetic joy. So we take pleasure in the well-being and happiness of others. And it is said that if we rejoice in those good things that happens to others, we actually create additional merit in that feeling of empathetic joy that we have for others, instead of a biased feeling of, why didn't I get that raise? Why didn't I get that? I want a new car, or all the different ways that we're in competition and situations that can create jealousy. Instead, we have appreciative or empathetic joy. So loving kindness, wanting all beings to be happy and have the causes of happiness. Compassion, wanting all beings to be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. Appreciative joy, and particular form, of equanimity. That is not just for our friends and family, it's for all beings who want the same thing. They want to be happy and they don't want to suffer. So we experience that equanimity, free from bias and free from, there's no exceptions in that unbiased love. That answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Lama.
But love can be complex, as you may have experienced in our culture, tied up with finding a single person to satisfy our huge list of needs and dreams, who we then grant the exclusive gift of our affection. But love from the Buddhist perspective is simpler, free from attachment. Love of this loving kindness is wishing others, as I mentioned, to be happy. And unfortunately, this day has probably created more discomfort for people because of their expectations about, what they want to have, how they want to express their love or have love expressed to them by their partner, which often falls short. So there could be more arguments in this day probably than other days. And hopefully this day that we call Valentine's Day is extended to every day. And this is not just a single true love to satisfy our huge list of needs, as we said, in dreams. And then we're going to love this particular person if they love me in the way that I want to be loved or need to be loved and give me the attention and the time. So romantic relationships can be fraught with all kinds of difficulties. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, that real life partner usually falls short of this idealized partner that we want. And even when we get into the relationship, if there's things that do not strike us as perfect, we think we're going to change them. And if that doesn't happen, we often realize after years that figuring out that they have false fears and annoying habits, just as we do. So it can be a challenge. But that is the great capacity we have. And that's wonderful if you're in a relationship like that, to cultivate patience, loving kindness, and compassion. And you can really build the qualities that we're talking about, in a relationship. It's not an abstract thing. You have opportunities every day to express that, cultivate this loving kindness and compassion, and on the path of love. So today we're examining, a different type of love, the pure, unbiased form of love that is part of the Mahayana Buddhist path. It's a form of love that can be practiced alone or with others, and that brings your mind to a joyous, happy state, which you can then share equally with everyone, including your partner, but also family, friends, strangers, even enemies, to have that equanimity. That's really the essence of equanimity, is that we have this quality, and we know that even so-called enemies want the same thing. And, enemies can become friends, friends become enemies. It is a constant kind of merry-go-round of relationships, and they change, don't they? They change from all kinds of things. Strangers become friends, friends become distant, and as I say, even enemies can become friends. It can happen like that. I think the definition of romantic love is almost impossible to put into words. When you look it up, I think, like many definitions, words point back to each other, that love is described as an intense romantic attachment, and romance is described as a deep feeling of love. But it's usually a very particular to an individual or a cultural or a family situation. So the Buddhist definition of love is maybe simpler. In the language of the Buddha's teachings, the word is for love is maitri, or in Sanskrit, metta, or metta in Pali. Maitri in Sanskrit, metta in Pali, and you'll see you'll see those words. So when when you see maitri, it's a Sanskrit word that means love, or metta is a Pali word that means love, and simply means wanting others to be happy. It doesn't mean that this love that we have is an expectation, of what somebody's going to do for us to make us feel good. It is the expression of wanting others to be happy. This is love. Romantic love, and the biased love we have for friends and family is a kind of love that typically comes with strings attached. Don't you think? It's often like that. I love you if you do this for me. And I know my own relationships, there can be transactional aspects of love, where I have expected something in return for love. But, when we develop this and see through it, we see how this expectation of affection really pollutes our love and makes it not very stable. So when we give our love and energy to friends, we expect the same back from them. And if we don't get it, we get disappointed or upset. When we don't get the love and attention and affection back from those we offer our love to, we often stop giving it. We seek out partners, friends, and family who reciprocate. Our love is often reciprocal. Any comment about that? Do you think that is so or not? And there's no reason to feel shameful about this, but it is useful to become aware of our inner expectations for the conditional love that we give. What do you think?
You hear, Lama, from people that, when they first start into a relationship, that fear of telling someone, I love you, because you don't know what the response is going to be. There's that horrible thing that they say, oh, well, I'd like you too.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't usually go over very well.
And I tried to explain that to a friend of mine recently when I told them that I love them. I said, you do realize that I'm not in love with you. I simply just love you. And if you don't love me back, that's okay. I'm giving you a gift. If you like it, wonderful. If you don't like it, it doesn't degrade my gift.
Yeah, it's a gift for both. It is a gift for the giver as well as the given. In fact, we say free of the three spheres. There's no giver, there's nothing given, and there's no receiver of that. It is done out of that pure emptiness of our wisdom mind that just naturally, it's like a natural expression of who we are. So it goes beyond the transactional love to a pure form of love that this is what we're calling in Buddhism loving kindness.
It's difficult to peel away the attachment of a relationship with a partner. And I know when I started in Buddhism, that was always a big question, was like, okay, well, I'm not supposed to be attached to anything, but yet I love my wife. How do you, discern attachment when you're in a relationship with someone, and whether, we know inherently attachment is not good, but the attachment that we have with a partner or spouse or even a family member, how do we kind of bring that to a more beneficial form of love?
Well, usually if it's a different kind of love, we said that if love has strings attached, and the word attachment is key here. In Buddhism, attachment is one of the three roots causes of our mental, emotional suffering. And so we're going to suffer, that's the key. How do you know? Because there is something that some transaction that happens that you didn't want, that you don't like, and that you are reacting to. And that's not the healthy psychological attachment of a child to its mother or the loving partners, to each other. But the attachment that externalizes our sense of happiness onto people and other objects. So this is the attachment is thinking we can't be happy unless other people provide us love and they act in the way we want them to, and that we get the attention that we expect from them. So we get an opportunity to really look at that the situation when we have that internal feeling of restlessness or anxiety or anger or jealousy, even if they're talking to somebody that we think, oh, may I lose my love to this other person? Or, there's so many things that can interfere with the easy flow of our natural affection and attention and love for another person. So that attachment in Buddhism, again, is seen as a delusion. It's understood as a mistaken belief that another person can be the cause of our inner happiness. Attachment exaggerates the positive qualities of another person and believes that if we just had that person in our life the way we want them, their presence and attention and affection would solve our own sense of incompleteness, fill our sadness, and make us happy. That's delusional. It doesn't happen like that. But that's our, that's why we say that attachment in Buddhism in this way is seen as delusion. So if you want to take on the Buddhist psychology, a psychological model for the working of the mind, then you accept the hypothesis of Buddhist teachings that attachment is a delusion. One of the roots of our constant unnecessary mental suffering. And you look with openness and curiosity at this purer form of love, and we try to express it, realize it, and cultivate it in our day-to-day activity. But yes, we are so used to, this is our knee-jerk response when it comes to relationships and with our partners. You know, if you, true love or matri, metta, this pure form of love comes with no strings attached. Easier said than done, I know. Love is this simple Buddhist definition, is unselfishly wishing others to be happy. So if you have that feeling for the other, you will not suffer because you have no expectation. The person can't affect you in the way that they didn't live up to your standard because you don't have that, because your expression is for their happiness and well-being. So love is the simple Buddhist definition of unselfishly wishing others to be happy and to be delighted to be in their presence and to offer our affection and smiles and hugs. That's all good. And help freely without wanting anything in return, except for them to be happy. So, you know, we might say that, you know, this love is wanting someone to be happy. Attachment is wanting it to be me, you know, that is happy. So love is wanting someone to be happy, and attachment is wanting it to be me. We've turned the lens away from ourselves and to the other person. This pure form of love or loving kindness is wanting happiness for another person, no matter where that happiness comes from. This form of selfless love can be a part of the love between partners. You know, I'm sure you who are in relationships feel that for your partner. And certainly in moments of non-discrimination, when you're free of attachment, it comes out, you know, when you do things that you may not want to do because you do it freely. But you do it because you know it will make the other person happy. And in so doing, you do find happiness, real happiness. Kemper Rinpoche said that the difference between real sentient beings like ourselves and the bodhisattvas is that the bodhisattvas do things for others and the sentient beings are always doing things for themselves. Yes, what was the question?
I'm sorry, look for a moment. When we are, how do we discern whether the love that we share with a partner or spouse or someone is healthy? You know, because we say that if the ultimate view is that we care, we have more compassion for others than ourselves. But how do we do that skillfully when we know that we still have attachment to work through?
Well, you know, if we're talking about selfless love, of course, it is possible in a romantic relationship, in a partnership like that, but normally our love is deeply intertwined with attachment, and which sours our feeling if you know, and makes us sometimes feel angry or sadness or resentment and fear when our partner doesn't meet our fantasy or when they don't give us what we think we need. So when we're feeling that, we get to look at it. And this is a part of awareness. It's a part of our mindful practice and the cultivation of loving kindness and compassion. So thinking of it, you know, the beauty of unbiased love is cultivated. It's a cultivated state. It's not to be conjured up through meditation and reflection. It can be, but we have to demonstrate it, and we can do it even while we're alone. And there are the 1,000-year-old techniques for cultivating love that work through simple, routine, everyday practices that reveal the kind of unending the qualities of our Buddha nature. So I'm not sure, what would you say about that? How have you experienced it?
Well, I think sometimes there's this balance, I guess, learning, we talk about that Buddhism, the path of the middle way, and to kind of begin to understand that in your relationships and realize that sometimes you have to be compassionate to yourself. You have to be compassionate to yourself as well as your
Yes.
partner or spouse or others in your life, and kind of figure out what that balance is sometimes. Because I'm not not fully awakened yet, I still cling to my own places and my own wants in relationships. And I see it and I realize it's no good, but sometimes you just fall into those patterns. So being able to come back to Buddhist practice and teachings helps. But
Absolutely. And there's a skillful means. We look at mind training, for example, in Tomlin. That is something that can be done at any time, and a source of our happiness can be sustained. And we can then offer freely to everyone around us. They don't even have to know it, but we're breathing in their discomfort, their sorrow, their ill health, or whatever, and we're exhaling out loving kindness and compassion. And as we continue to do that, it's a natural. It's like breathing, So with this form of love, you have equanimity, and that's really the basis. When we talk about these 4 qualities. Usually equanimity is the last one that's talked about, but really it should be the first, so that we're generating this quality of equanimity, so that you're happy when you're alone, you're happy when you're with others, you're happy when you get what you want, you're happy if you don't get what you want, you're happy when in all these circumstances. It's not based on the situation. So loving kindness, this unselfish love, is a natural quality that we all have latent inside of us. So when you say you see that, that's when you're doing it, that's where we uproot the negative klesha or habitual pattern. If we can see it, if that is true, that you can see that, that is a big step in progress on the path. We can cultivate loving kindness, but first we have to see the impediments and the obscurations that we have in that demonstration of our loving kindness, and perfect it. That is the foundation of a happy, meaningful life. And so, what you said is important. As you say, we're not realized at this point, but if we can have the attentiveness, have the mindfulness, have the awareness of when we are putting something on somebody else, or we have these expectations that are inevitably not going to work out the way we want, and then we suffer, we can see what causes that suffering. It is the Noble Eightfold Path. There's suffering, and there's a cause to that suffering, and there's a way out of that suffering. And so we have to do the practice to uproot those things that create those conditions. So love definitely challenges our biased state of mind. So the closer we are to knowing our mind, the better we are. So that is the point of meditation, and we can bring this to our meditation practice as well. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
it does, but can you talk a little bit more then about bringing this love to our meditation practice?
Well, I would say
silent sitting or Vipassana or
Tomlin.
Tomlin, yes.
Tomlin. Yeah, that is a basic part of the Mahayana path for cultivating bodhicitta. And bodhicitta is the essence of the path, certainly for the Mahayana and the Vajrayana as well. So that is critical, our mind training. And this is all mind training, basically.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a comment or anything else to mention or a question?
Go ahead.
Sitting here with Jackie, she kind of mentioned, that this having a spouse, this is hard trying to come up with this love. And I kind of jokingly said, well, yeah, that's why some of us become monks.
Right. Uh-huh.
But it seemed to me that I first, when going into ropes, thought, well, this is good. I don't have to have that one person I'm so attached to that's causing all this trouble. I can just step away from that. But it seemed like then it was, now I have everyone that I'm loving. It made my practice of loving not shrink because I left behind a spouse, and then I had to grow it even more.
Yeah, well, it's harder possibly with a spouse that you're with every day because there's so much irritation that could come up. And how do you, you have to cultivate, this is the 6 paramitas of a bodhisattva, starting with patience. So, now it's a particularly useful time to examine and challenge our biased states of mind like this. There are the scientific and sociological ways of explaining some of our reactions, especially when they relate to all kinds of things that we encounter in our culture. We don't like this, we hate this, and we isolate ourselves, and we hear politicians speaking, and do we generate love for them? Not so much, or for people who have committed terrible wrongs. But our compassion, our love has to include them, because we understand that they are suffering tremendously. Every day it seems like we're reading about some mass murder. There was just one in Michigan State. It happens repeatedly. So we have to really see that we lack certain qualities, in our culture. And the impact of our culture and our media and the stories told over the generation biases how we feel toward people, and creates hierarchies towards certain cultures and people and who look different from us. But that is all grist for the mill, because we all have Buddha nature, and we really want to cultivate that. And we see that the people who are doing, when we say that the essence of the Buddhist teaching is to cultivate virtue, avoid wrongdoing, and taming our mind, that this situation that we may find ourselves in, or see on the television, or hear in the media, and that it creates a certain energy inside of us that is negative. We have an opportunity to look at that too, and see what comes up for us around that. And it can actually bring up loving kindness and compassion, because knowing that the result of that negative action is going to create tremendous suffering for that individual. Knowing that, you can do Tomlin for that person, inhaling the suffering of their ignorance, and sending them loving kindness and compassion, and quieting that neurotic, psychotic mind that is creating such a difficult time for them.
So,
Yeah.
Earlier when Jamsa was talking about the part that's hard, I was talking about, you said love is unselfishly wishing others are happy without any other attachments, and that it's good to be delighted in their presence. That's the part I said is hard, because there's times when, like, I love somebody, but they annoy me and they push my buttons and they do it over and over again. It's so hard to like I can still love them, but it's hard to not succumb to those same attachments as becoming angry back, or snapping back at them or something like that. That's the hard part for me.
Yeah, it's the hard part for everyone, I think, because there's going to be people who push our buttons But the more that we can settle ourselves in, no one really does push our buttons. We react in, again, this knee-jerk response. And when we're have freedom, I mean, we don't have freedom if that's our natural response to something is the anger or the irritation. It's a knee-jerk response to that particular situation. There's no freedom in that. We do have real freedom to be able to respond appropriately to the situation out of loving kindness. We can see that as a neurotic tendency that they may have, or that it is pushing them in a particular kind of way based on their causes and conditions. But we don't have to react. We can respond, in a manner that's fitting and not react with negativity. That just deepens our kleshas. It deepens our habitual pattern that created that in the first place. So our wish is to uproot that pattern. So when we see it, that is an opportunity, and we should see it as an opportunity to grow in that and to literally uproot it. Just take it right out. And every time it appears, it will lessen because we see it readily before we react and get into the negative emotional state. Oh, I'm feeling my heart racing a little bit. This person is irritating me. Breathe, relax, do Tomlin again, and employ the methods that we're talking about here. These are the catalysts that will help us, or the means, the skillful means to uproot these negative kleshas. No one wants to invite discomfort, but in a way, we use everything on the path to strengthen our own internal strength and capacity to love, basically. And that is an opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. That's helpful.
Yes. Often, it's a traditional Buddhist explanation of these spontaneous reactions to people is that they're a sign of our past karma. With that person, even from a previous life, there are people that just irritate us for no apparent reason. And that we unconsciously recall our past deep relationships with strangers who we were formerly a child or lover or enemy, and that can spark strong emotional reactions. So we can get tossed and turned and pushed by all of these emotions, and that is exhausting to have to deal with. So sometimes scientists have other explanations. A cultural psychologist might say that such biases are wholly embedded in the larger patterns of our culture. And that is true. We are taught to like certain people, not like certain people, be careful of certain people, and that we learn this early on. Unconsciously, we just react like that from observing the behavior of those around us. So it is not easy to uproot those cultural things that are really embedded, we would say, and are really hard to even see because it, again, is like a knee-jerk response. It's our natural response. So evolutionary psychologists point out that our tribal evolution that biases us toward trusting people who look like ourselves. If they look like us, they're trustworthy. If they don't look like us, we have to be careful. And if you pay attention, you might notice that people you feel instantly attracted to often look like you do. So it is an interesting perception.
Would you say that's a type of repentance in a way? Like, so if your past karma is coming back to kind of come back and test you in a way, it gives you a chance to kind of react in a way that maybe you didn't before.
Yeah, so you can respond. Yes, that is, it is definitely an opportunity. Like I say, anything that you are exposed to in that way is grist for the mill, and gives us an opportunity to look at it if we have the perspective, we have the view that everything serves to further us, even these so-called negative emotions that create discomfort for us. We can, once we see them, We don't have to go down that road again and again and again. You know, we're mindfully examining our bias. And we have to be honest with ourselves, and we have to be courageous, you know, to look it in the face. And also just interesting to openly examine the biases in our love. We can first become aware of our bias through mindfulness by simply noticing how we react to people, who we share our affection with, for whom we withhold it, you know, who we immediately dislike or ignore, or who we're naturally attracted to. It's interesting, you know, how that happens, our spontaneous, so-called spontaneous reactions. And it's really hard to know what those relationships are, you know, in Buddhist cosmology. Our Buddha nature, we've been here in many different lives since beginningless time, and we've interacted with everybody. We say that they've all been our mother, so that is one of the things that brings us to the point of not wanting to harm anyone. If we really do believe that, and all of our teachers say that this is the case, that we have lived so many lives that each of these beings has been our mother and took care of us, and when we couldn't take care of ourselves. So that is a situation that we have care for them. So we could actually look at it like that as well. It's an interesting meditation. You know, you can watch your mind go through all kinds of surprisingly strong reactions to strangers who know nothing, you know nothing about, but you react to them in a way. It may just be someone walking down the street, and you have attraction or aversion, and there's no real objective reason for that. It can be helpful to just be mindful when you feel those emotions bubbling up. Particularly, you know, the three main negative emotions that we talked about are responses of attachment, aversion, or indifference, you know, that we have towards a stranger. And then through mindfulness, we can watch our mind as we interact with those closest to us. It can be painful, you know, to do this, but try to watch closely what your mind is doing. Its attachment, its aversion, as you interact through the day with those close to you, your partner, children, friends, colleagues, neighbors. And cultivating that equanimity of loving kindness towards everyone without the overlay of this projection of who they are or who we think they are. It's more about you know, our projections than it is about them. We project all kinds of things. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but it's interesting to see what comes up and what they do that annoys us and what we want them to stop doing or to keep doing, all those things. So when you look at these closely, at the feelings of biased love, it's love with strings attached. And you notice your mind being agitated if it's someone close to you who is behaving in a way that you don't like. They make you feel uneasy, or not only you know, in your relationships with those close to you, but anyone. They make you feel uneasy and unsatisfied and unhappy, but no one is doing that to you. You're doing that to yourself. That is really an important point to realize. They're not doing that to you. This is all coming from your own mind stream. We can't control the world. We can't control other people. Yet we can control our own mind. That's all we can control. And that's the motivation for cultivating this selfless, unconditional love of loving kindness. Wanting someone to be happy without anything in return, letting go of our attachment. That will give us the greatest happiness. That's the big love.
Go ahead.
Can you talk just a little bit about, oh, I lost it. Hang on. I forgot what I was gonna ask.
It may come back.
Oh, yeah, advocating for yourself. So if you're in a situation where, you know, maybe you're working with somebody who is just kind of like mean or bossy, and they're continuing to do this to you, and you are trying to understand that it's not you that, like you said, that they're doing it to, but at some point, can you talk a little bit about like advocating for yourself in that situation, and maybe just the frame of mind that you need to be in where, I don't know.
Yeah, we may not be able to do that all the time. We don't have the capacity. We haven't got that big love yet. So it's best to kind of disengage from that process if you can't really turn it around and disengage from the negative emotion that is being created in that situation. And there are people who, you know, they're looking for that response. There are people who, you know, they're jealous of you possibly. They want to make trouble for you. That happens. I mean, there are power struggles. There's all kinds of things. So, but you can still, even in that situation, not let them get under your skin. Again, you see that as their own neurosis. I mean, it may be totally, you know, there's no objective reason for them to be acting that way. And if there is, I mean, if they're saying something that you need to take note of it. But yeah, so in terms of advocating for yourself, if you can disengage from that situation before it escalates into something that you're not capable of taking care of. But as you continue, again, it's, you know, your Teflon, it's not going to stick on you. All those, it's words, and we see it as words and emptiness. You know, sticks and stones will break my bones, words will never hurt me. It is something like that. But we do have the capacity not to respond with negative emotions. But we all have a different capacity. We're talking about, you know, a bodhisattva who has reached a level of loving kindness. I mean, they'll take off an arm, you know, in a situation. We don't have that kind of capacity to give in that way. So it is, we have to know what our strengths are, what our capacity is, but we can build that capacity. It's like building mental muscle, or like building, you know, increasingly compassionate heart. And if we can see that person in that way, and to see their failings as, you know, an opportunity to, you know, both for us to cultivate virtue, but not if we respond. Sometimes people just want you to get angry. You know, it seems like they're really, as you say, pushing your buttons. And if you don't do that, it's interesting. You've changed the game, and the whole situation may change under those circumstances if you don't give in to those things. That it can be a response pattern that this person does for attention, or to you know, as a power kind of struggle, or so many different reasons that a person can have for the negative emotion, but none of them are good. They're all psychological aberrations, you know, based on neurosis, basically. So you don't have to give in to another person's neurosis, you know, by getting angry or being upset any more than you would get upset with anyone, you know, a puppy who is scratching the floor or doing something. This is, it's kind of what it does, and So you tell it no, and you may have to have the conversation to say, when you do this, it's very distressing, and we're not making progress in this situation. Again, it takes guts to confront that, but you can confront it in a way that is non-aggressive and does not have to create anger in yourself. That is possible to do. And the more skilled we become, the better off we'll be, and the less we will be a victim to people like that. Did that help at all?
Very much, thank you.
Yeah, we want this big love we're talking about is the wish for all beings without exception to have happiness and the causes of happiness. It transcends all other kinds of romantic love and these biased feelings that we might have towards those that are close to us or we work with. This is directed towards the vast expanse of all beings everywhere, expanding even beyond human beings to all sentient beings. So we don't smash the bug, we don't hit the dog or the cat or the cow or the chicken or the fish or the things that fly or ants. This is all sentient life we want to be compassionate towards, because they all have Buddha nature. They all have Buddha nature. So one thing we can say is that one basic definition of life is the ability to move towards things that give pleasure. We all want to be happy and away from those things that cause pain, and we don't want to suffer. So life is the ability to move. That's an underlying kind of motivation to move towards things that give pleasure and to move away from those things that cause pain. And this big love we're talking about, we wish all beings, whatever, simple happiness they can have. And when we talk about Tomlin, you can do Tomlin for animals as well. You may think of an animal in a shelter who's afraid and cold and abandoned and, in a cage. It's the worst thing we can do is to put somebody in a cage. And we for human beings, to put them in solitary confinement is the worst possible punishment we can do. That's the worst thing you can do to a prisoner. Put them in solitary confinement. They don't have the capacity to be with others, to be the expression of love, to give love. So, we can do Tomlin for animals, that may be in a shelter and they're cold and they're hungry and they're scared. And we imagine them and that's a way of cultivating compassion. Some people it's easier for them to love animals than it is human beings. So we start where we are, with our imagining this loving kindness and compassion, spreading it from a person or an animal or a being to those family members, to ourselves as well, and to family members, those who we know, those who we don't know, that we are neutral towards our enemies, those who we may have some karma with, who have treated us badly, and expanded out to the far reaches of space, to the cosmos. May all beings be happy and have the causes of happiness. May all beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings have, this this empathetic joy, and equally to all beings. It's vast, but we're trainable, and we can really improve our heart's capacity to embrace this big love. So that's, are you familiar with Tomlin? Is that a practice that some of you are familiar with?
I'm not very familiar.
If not, you can just TON sometimes there's a G, Tomlin, a Tonglin. You can Google it, and there are many teachers. It's talked about in many different ways, and it's interesting. This is definitely a Buddhist practice, but it's used in psychology and in secular things and all kinds of ways now. It's been usurped by all kinds of different ways to use it. But it is an important practice, and it can help to facilitate our practice of loving kindness and compassion. And that is bodhicitta. And you may, if you were having to cultivate one particular quality, it should be bodhicitta, more than anything else, loving kindness and compassion for all suffering beings. And that bodhicitta should be, can be the intent. Even if we do one mani, Om Mani Padme Hum, it is with that intention that we do it for the benefit of all beings. So everything, every breath we take, it can be an example of Tomlin, breathing in the suffering and breathing out the compassion, loving kindness to all beings. So we're only limited by our own imagination in that. And this can be a kind of daily reflection on love that ends up being this deep, reliable cause of our own happiness.
I believe it is in Dharma Paths. There is a section on Tomlin and Dharma Paths. Yeah.
Yes, I think there is.
There's so much that I've learned, and some of it sticks and some of it hasn't stuck yet.
Well, there's a lot to learn. So by and by, drop by drop, as we said, fills the bucket. So don't be too concerned if it doesn't all stick. There's a learning curve, as we say. So, but there are benefits to continuing your practice, and even if it is drop by drop. That's what fills the cup. That's what fills the bucket. So just the things, that we're talking about are important, it's transformative. So this is an example of, it's part of the mind training of the Buddhist path. That's in the Mahayana tradition.
I have a question, Lama.
Yes.
So this is from Justine. My deepest friendships are those that include a commitment to reciprocity, so that one person isn't always extending their effort in the relationship. Is this biased love?
Yes. It's a bargain. It's a contract. I will do this if you do that. Don't you think? What is the statement that would you say that again?
So my deepest friendships are those that include a commitment to reciprocity, so that one person isn't always extending the effort in the relationship.
So that it's like, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. That is conditional. It's like a contract. Reciprocity. You may not hear it. You might not want to hear that, but can you see how that is? I mean, and a lot of marriages are like that. You do this for me, I'll do this for you. And if someone backs out on their side of it, if they don't do the dishes, or they don't take out the garbage, or if they don't do their chores, they've violated the thing, and boy, there's big trouble. The big love is not contractual. You can't violate the love. It is there regardless. I know it's hard to fathom, maybe, but that is the love we're talking about. It goes beyond that definition of reciprocity. That's kind of a legal thing. It's a contract. And that's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I needed one of those mind blown emojis to put on there, because that was definitely, I needed to hear that.
Yeah. By meditating on love, you see all beings in their most positive, beautiful aspect and relate to their kindness under all circumstances. By meditating on love, you naturally become the object of love and affection. It's a cliche, but it's true that if you want to be loved, make yourself lovable. So when you walk into a room and immediately bring joy to everyone there, we all want to spend more time with warm-hearted, loving people like this. And even better is to become one ourselves. So it's not a matter of, we only have so much love, and I can give it to you if you behave like this, and I won't do it if you don't.
I think we forget, Lama, sometimes to bring our practice into our relationships, in our closest relationships. When we're practicing, we think about it as on the cushion. We think about it as, with strangers. we think about practice in that way, but we forget that to bring the practice into our most intimate moments and our most difficult moments. When we really need them.
And that's really important to understand, that it is on the cushion, it's off the cushion, it's 24/7, that our mind is in a state of love and compassion, and we're mindful of when it's not, and we continually bring it on track, just like when we're doing shamatha. When a thought comes to mind, we bring it back to the breath. In a way, we can do the same thing day to day. When we lose our loving kindness and compassion, we bring it back to loving kindness and compassion and cultivate our bodhicitta in that way. And it needn't be hard. Meditating on love shouldn't be hard. Well, certain meditations like meditating on suffering or death or renunciation, these are all things that we can contemplate, in meditation. Shamatha is tranquility meditation, so we're just focusing the awareness on the breath. But there are certain things in Vipassana, in our insight meditation that we focus on to cultivate these particular qualities that the Buddha taught. But then they may not seem attractive on the surface, but we do them because, like any exercise, doing them because of the long-term benefit. Meditating on love tends to feel good right away, and it's pleasurable and enjoyable and easy to do, and it creates great benefit. So hopefully you're now excited to do meditation on love. And this is a great opportunity in this Valentine's Day, that everyone is our Valentine. Well, I think that's all I have to say. If there's no other questions or comments about loving kindness, I hope that it made sense, and it is something that you can actually take away and benefit yourself and others on the path to freedom. As we were saying before, if we don't do that, we're not free. If we're just reacting this knee-jerk response, like I say, when someone does something, we react in this way. That is not freedom. That's not freedom.
I wanted to share something, an observation that I just had, and I'm just going to say it quick so I don't feel emotional about it. I've heard the idea that each person has been our mother
Yes.
a lot of times. And I think another perspective, perhaps, of the same thought is that I have been the mother to each being.
Yes.
So I've not been a mother in this life. And I've had a challenging mother relationship in this life. But if I think of like Tara's love, like a perfect motherly love,
Yes.
the idea that I've already have had that for all beings, that brings about a new feeling of compassion.
That's a good one to do. There's a meditation for you. You can deepen that feeling because it is true. And I think what's bringing the tears is the truth of that. That is very real. And you can feel that. So yes, everyone's been our mother, but you've been everyone's mother as well. Thank you very much. So we have to understand that that works like that. Often people don't have, that is a commonly used expression of loving kindness and compassion is to see all beings as our mothers, but not everyone has such a great relationship with their mothers. So it is, we've been everything to everyone. We've been lovers, we've been friends, we've been brothers, sisters, you name it. It's been every permutation known to humanity. So, but usually, unfortunately, usually our mothers are the ones that we should have kindness for. They did bring us into the world. They carried us in their belly for 9 months plus, and it was not such an easy time. I'm sure I've never been a mother either, but well, I shouldn't say this life, but it's not an easy time, and we were helpless and we were taken care of. So to care for our parents and showing love to them is considered in the Tibetan tradition very important. And then we may not have had a good relationship, but we still owe them a debt of gratitude. So that was very insightful. I agree with you. Anything else? Are there any other announcements you'd like to make, Mike? Is anything else to mention before we do closing the dedication?
Sure. We have coming up this weekend, we have our rummage sale. We'll be doing some cleaning and pricing of items from probably 4 to 7, 4 to 8 on Friday evening. And then Saturday morning, we'll be here setting up at 7 a.m. The rummage sale will start at 8 a.m. Then our fundraising lunch will begin at 11. We'll have curry for $10 and the takeout and pho for $20. This is to fundraise for our new sign on the side of the building. And the food will be served from 11 to 4, I believe. So if you want an early dinner, you can come by and pick up some wonderful dinner. Then March 3rd through 5th, Lama Karma Drodal will be here teaching on the medicine Buddha practice that we do here every week. He'll be doing a public talk and introduction on Friday night at 7 p.m. and then the traditional teaching schedule throughout the weekend. In person, he'll be doing the empowerment and the refuge ceremony Saturday afternoon from 3 to 5 o'clock. So that won't be on Zoom. We do have the Zoom links, though, if you'd like to participate in the rest of the teaching weekend. And you can see those all at our website, ktcjax.org.
Mama, aren't you doing Losang, Losar on Sunday?
No, we're doing it on Losar on the 21st.
Okay.
I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there too for that that weekend. So I will see those of you who are going to be participating. I'll be there as well. And a plug for Casey, who is he's providing the food. Yes, his father and the curry.
Yes, this weekend. Yes,
he is quite the chef. So do yourself a favor and try it.
Thank you, Lama. And also, Lama Karma will be offering interviews, time to sit down and talk about your practice. And Lama Losang has also made the offer as well. If you have some questions about your practice, the weekend of the teaching, we will set some time up with either Lama to sit down and talk.
Yes, I'll be there, and we're going to have some time for interviews. And there was some question about interviews. Interviews are just time for you to get your questions answered and to make a connection with the teachers, myself and Lama Karma. And it's a nice way to create, a connection. So, and you may have some legitimate questions as well that you'd like some help with. So we're going to be there to do that.
No, Kathy, so the questions, the interviews are usually off so you either in the office or in the shrine room or outside. Interviews are kind of more private. Now there are question and answers during the teaching that are in front of everyone, but interviews are private.
Yeah, they're private interviews.
And do I have another question here? Hold on. Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Michael, you said the teachings were Saturday and Sunday, or just Saturday?
Saturday and Sunday.
Got it.
And yes, you can sign up for the interviews as well. I'll put you down, Kathy. And anyone else that would like an interview, you can either shoot us an email at info@ktcjax.org or just let us know the morning of the teaching and we'll get you on the list and schedule.
Okay, that's the announcements. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Anything else need to be done before we do a close and dedication? So when you're doing your practice, always dedicate the merit. That is an important aspect for, you're dedicating the merit to the benefit of all beings, and all of our actions should have that a kind of quality or intention. This is part of the cultivation of the Mahayana and bodhicitta, that our practice is twofold. It is certainly for our benefit to attain maximum, merit and wisdom, but also that we are able to have that merit and wisdom to benefit all sentient beings. That is our intent. So with that in mind, we'll do the dedication. We dedicate this merit of our coming together and talking about love for the benefit of all beings, and especially at this moment for the peoples and nations of this earth, and the people in Syria and Turkey who are suffering. Tens of thousands have been killed and many more displaced and suffer. We dedicate the merit to their well-being and auspicious rebirth, and for all disease and famine and violence and shootings and war and suffering be pacified. And may pure conduct and merit, wealth, peace and prosperity increase and flourish. And may supreme good fortune and health and vitality and well-being always arise in the minds of beings. May all of our wishes be accomplished in the most auspicious way. We dedicate this merit. Thank you all very much for this time together. And I look forward to seeing you when I'm there with Lama Karma.
Thank you, Lama.
Thank you, Lama.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Tonight.
Good night.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Well.
Thank you. Thank you,
Good night.
everyone.